I'm about to hand over my CTO role to someone new for one of my SaaS products, and this is our 12-step checklist to make sure nothing breaks. If you're hiring out the technical role of a software product that you have been building or that you're already running, you need to have a clear plan in order to hold this person accountable and in order to measure that person's success. It took me years to figure out what's exactly necessary as a CTO, and this is now exactly the framework we're using to hire out our CTO role. We're going through the most critical areas from stakeholder management to handling technical debt, and I'm also going to show you exactly the tools and processes we are using in our venture studio. So let's get started. Define clear success metrics. This is where we have to start. We need to know exactly what we want to get out of this and how we're going to measure it. I run a SaaS company and I have an applicant right now who would replace me as the CTO/PO of this business. And he had a couple of questions. I want to answer them here for him, but also for you guys in the YouTube video. The first thing that he didn't ask me was what are actually the goals? And I want to start with those because from the goals, everything else comes. The first one is to replace me. I only want to work 1 hour per week in the meeting with him to just see if we are doing the right thing. That means I would coach that new CTO. This makes it a good goal because we know exactly how much time I'm going to spend, and this will tell us how far we are in this goal. The second and even more important goal is that the marketers are happy. This software company is made with a partnership. That means that there are a couple of people on the sales side that sometimes need new features. So they need to be getting what they request, and sometimes there need to be some pushback. And the third goal is, of course, to keep the product stable. That means we need constant updates, and sometimes also the new CTO needs to look into this and say, there's something that doesn't work so well, I want to improve this. Point number 2, establish stakeholder management, because we want to keep the partners happy so they can do the best job they can selling and onboarding new customers. So basically you need to improve the product and get the feedback from the stakeholders and then also from the customers. Sometimes we need to design features. So the stakeholders might come in and say, we need a certain thing, how can we do this? And now you need to get in there and see what you can do in order to define the feature and then later on hand this off to the developer. Step number 3, applying our own feature design and development process. And this is super important because we need to follow our defined process that the developers already know. So this is one of the first things the new CTO needs to learn, is to how to make good technical sketches. We have another video about this, but we basically have a Google Slides, a Google presentation, and we tell the story. It's a bit like this Jeff Bezos storytelling way of bringing up a problem. And then we state the goal, what we want to do here. And then there's just a couple of details that we should do. For example, like say what could be a solution which we don't want to do, or another one that has a drawback. And then this would be solution Z. This is what we wanted to do. And then we're going into the definition of this feature in mostly UI sketches. It could be workflows, it could be a database model, it could be any kind of screenshot. But usually what we do is we define the UI first and then we annotate with those boxes here. But again, there's another video to this which you find on my channel. Step number 4, QAing the developer. Any kind of feature that comes back from the developer needs to get scrutinized if it's actually good enough, or if the developer maybe used too much AI or too little AI. All this feedback needs to get put back into the merge requests and eventually being deployed into the new software. Once the feature is defined in the technical sketch, then there need to be a meeting with the developer. You can also technically just give him the instructions, but just make sure that what the developer is going to do matches with what you have in your head, how this feature should be built. And later on, of course, also code reviews, which is super important because you need to be on top of things. You ideally need to know everything that gets merged into main. Step number 5, finding a good compensation model and ideally have some kind of bonus and incentive for performance. And this depends on the project. Our project is a bit smaller, so we want to cut down the time of the CTO so they have the potential of taking on multiple jobs. Someone might call it fractional CTO, which makes a lot of sense in our scenario here. Now, this is something that I can directly play back to you. How much do you want to work? How much do you want to learn about this? I said as a fixed thing is the monthly retainer, which we already talked about. And now you can go ahead and basically learn as much as you want. I'm leaving this open. You need to work as much as necessary to fulfill this. And you can work more if you want, if you find this interesting, but you don't need to. Step number 6, include customer support duties. And only if the CTO can sometimes do that, they are excelling at the product management, because they really need to understand what the customers are using the software for. Again, you work as much as you want. If you want to delegate more, that means you work less, but you have to check in more. We also need to require you to do a bit of customer support, and this will really help you understand the software, understand the pain of the customers. Step number 7, establish clear metrics of success, how to hold the CTO accountable. And this usually is a scorecard according to the EOS principles in the traction book. We're going to get that to a later video. Subscribe now in order to get those videos about how to build and scale your own software as a service as a non-technical founder. Something that is very good as a product manager to do is to have KPIs, meaning you can measure a goal. If you have KPIs, then you know how much have you reached that goal. And the other things as well, is the software stable? Is the uptime good? Is the response rate good? All these things, I leave this to you. You can set your own KPIs, but I want to know these KPIs so that I can check in and I can see if we're improving. Step number 8, set feature request guidelines. The CTO needs to understand that it's very important to sometimes say no if there are feature requests that are not really helpful, or that would pile up technical debt, or that nobody would be using. We had this example before where we coded something that was actually not really usable in the end, and we just had to scrap that feature and start from scratch. So it's very important that the CTO scrutinizes everything that comes in and then decides if it's worth implementing or not. Now, the stakeholders sometimes they want features and they have some ideas, and some are really great and some are really bad. So you need to prioritize if that's something that we actually need, that there's an actual business value attached to that. But I'll be here to have a meeting with you every week to discuss those things and give you feedback. Step number 9, emphasize invisible maintenance work. This is super crucial because we want to have our SaaS running at all times. And if something bad piles up, like technical debt, or like the server storage fills up too quickly, anything like that where we need to maintain the software, the CTO needs to be aware that he has time buckets to do so. Do the things that people don't see. The software sometimes has outdated packages. Sometimes we see that there is need for refactoring. In those cases, I would like you to proactively go in and improve the software, or make a plan for the developer to improve it. These are things that we don't see. Nobody sees what happens under the hood, but for the long-term stability, it really helps. Step number 10, create clear guidelines on the rhythm of communication. In our case, the CTO has a meeting with us every week, but we should specifically tell them how often they can reach out to us outside that, or how they can call us into important meetings. We need to set the expectations, also what's required from them. How often should they tell us when something is bad, or when they want to change something, when they want to change the course of any feature that gets developed. The CTO needs to know how our company ticks and how is the rhythm of the communication. We have a weekly call. Usually that's Mondays, and usually we talk on WhatsApp. These are the other stakeholders, the partners, and that's me usually. What happens on this meeting? It's just usually half an hour where I give the status of the development, and then the sales partners have some updates on if they have some sales activities or some feedback from the customers or something that we might need to know. How do you handle client communication? You will get your own Gmail address where you talk to the customers, but usually there's not more than 3 tickets per week. You can actually be the responsible person they reach out to if there's a problem. Of course, that's the whole idea, that you replace me over time. Step number 11, build documentation standards. The software needs to be documented. This is very important now also in times of AI. If we don't document, the AI also doesn't know how to implement features. So the CTO needs to know when to document and what to document. The docs folder, where there's a lot of things documented, and usually for brainstorming as well. We have the technical sketches where the features are defined, and then we just have a lot of tests. That's mandatory, especially with Ruby on Rails. We also have a Tiger, which is just our project management system, where you just put in, these are the tasks we want to work through, and these are the things we choose to work on right now. Step number 12, keep them inside the code. This is probably the best advice I can give. I've seen some CTOs who get out of touch with coding, and that's not good. They need to stay on top of things and sometimes even code a feature for themselves. And then you ask me if you should be more hands-on or more strategic. Well, the strategy is not so much required. We kind of know where the product should go. You should be on the ground with the developer, figuring out what should be done, but then have him do it. If you're a non-technical founder, you want to build your own software as a service, subscribe to my channel, because then you can see more videos like this.